Imagine a dog with pleading eyes, plush ears, and an investigative instinct so strong it has caused more food disappearances than any soap opera villain. Now, what if I told you that the Beagle was once a real espionage tool during political conflicts? Yes, this friendly little guy with a face that says he's never broken a dish has a record that would make many pets lose custody of their kibble. But it doesn't stop there. In ancient times, he was called the voice of the forest, not for singing beautifully, but for howling loud enough to scare even a king. And there's more. A breeding mistake almost wiped this breed off the face of history, all because of a noble fad in the 13th century. Want to understand why a Beagle can be as stubborn as he is charismatic, and why, as cute as he looks, he can feel anger towards you. Yes, real anger. So, get the leash ready, because we're going to sniff out the origin, the secrets, the glories, and the stumbles of this breed that is as adored as it is misunderstood. Stick with me until the end, because in addition to discovering the mysteries behind this breed's origin, you'll understand why it acts the way it does at the end. I'll even tell you 10 reasons why a Beagle might be angry with you. Before we dive into the mysterious origins of a Beagle, we need to know the suspect's profile. And here it is. Average height of 13 to 16 inches, 33 to 41 centimeters. Weight between 20 and 24 pounds, 9 and 11 kilograms. Short and dense coat, always with classic combinations of white, black, and tan. But don't be fooled. Behind that cute appearance, there's an operating system programmed to hunt and ignore commands. Originally bred for hunting, the Beagle carries a very sharp nose in its DNA. It has approximately 120 million olfactory receptors. That's almost 50 times more than ours. The result, it can sniff out a cookie from miles away, and if you hide something, it will find it and maybe destroy it in the process. Its temperament is friendly, affectionate, and sociable, but also stubborn, anxious, and insistent to know. And what does this mean in practice? That it can love you madly and, at the same time, drive you crazy in less than 5 minutes if you forget to lock the pantry. Despite its small appearance, the Beagle has an almost inexhaustible energy. It was made to run, explore, and vocalize. Yes, vocalize, because this dog doesn't just bark. It discourses. Its typical howl, known as a bay, echoes with intensity and can bother less tolerant neighbors for these and other reasons. It's not exactly a dog for sedentary or unprepared guardians. The Beagle needs physical, mental, and a lot of patience, and even with so much energy, it is incredibly docile with children and other dogs. But be careful, its intelligence combined with a certain degree of rebelliousness makes it one of the most difficult dogs to train, especially if you try to command it without earning its respect. Now that you know the file of this little rebellious detective, it's time to understand how this breed originated and why its origin is surrounded by more questions than answers. Despite now occupying sofas and destroying pillows worldwide, the Beagle carries centuries of history on its paws, a history shrouded in confusion, hunts, and British blue blood. And this is where the frustration begins. No one knows for sure where and when this breed originated. And that, frankly, should already be a warning sign. What is known as that small dogs, used to hunt rabbits and hares, existed in ancient Greece and later in Rome. When the Romans invaded Britain, they brought these scent hounds with them, primitive ancestors of what would later be called the Beagle, but it was only in medieval England, between the 11th and 13th centuries, that the Beagle began to take shape. During the reigns of Edward II and Henry VII, there were records of dogs called pocket beagles, so small they could fit in a horse's saddlebag. And here's the irony, a breed famous today for being noisy and disobedient was once considered an elite dog of royalty. Unbelievable. The word beagle possibly comes from the old French Beagle, which describes the sound of these dogs howl during the hunt, a linguistic detail that already reveals how much this breed is always insistent on being heard. For centuries, the Beagle was perfected for a single purpose: to follow trails, chase prey, resist fatigue. It was the dog of choice for hunts on foot, especially for those who didn't have horses, becoming popular among the English rural nobility. But here's the annoying detail. Despite all this genetic selection and prestige, the Beagle was never shaped to obey or please. It was programmed for one thing only: to follow its nose. And this created what we have today, a dog that can love you but will completely ignore you if it smells something more interesting. In the 19th century, with the formalization of breed standards, the Beagle finally consolidated as we know it today. But once again, history repeats itself. It became a pet without ever really being domesticated, a hunting dog. Now inside apartments and houses, fighting against its own nature and dragging the guardian's sanity along with it. You've seen a Beagle on TV, even if you don't know it. And that's where the indignation begins. How did such a stubborn, noisy, and obstinate dog manage to conquer the world with a "it wasn't me" face? In the 1950s and 60s, the Beagle began to gain prominence outside of English hunts. It crossed the ocean and invaded North American homes with a less than noble goal: to be sold as a perfect family pet. Seriously, the pet industry transformed this obsessive hunter into a symbol of sweetness and companionship. This, of course, without warning anyone about the time bomb built into the package. But the real masterstroke came in 1950 when Charles M. Schulz created the character that would change everything: Snoopy. Yes, the Beagle who doesn't bark, who walks onto legs, and who dreams of being an airplane pilot. Snoopy has nothing to do with the reality of the Beagle, but that never stopped the world from falling in love. The irony: The fictional caricature of a beagle is infinitely easier to handle than the real dog. With Snoopy, the beagle became a celebrity. It was on t-shirts, notebooks, cartoons, commercials. And the worst part, this caused the demand for puppies to explode. Children wanted a Snoopy at home. Entire families were deluded by this charismatic and silent image of a dog who, in real life, never stops moving or shuts up. The 1990s brought another surge. The beagle began to appear in movies, series, and commercials as the ideal tempered dog. Advertising agencies used it as a symbol of friendliness and intelligence. The marketing was clear: a beagle will make you happy, but what many discovered, too late, is that it can also chew your sofa, howl for hours, and disappear from its leash as soon as it catches a scent in the wind. The beagle's fame became a trap. The more it appeared on screens, the more people wanted one, and the more people had one. The more shelters filled up with dogs that no one could control. But not everything was stages and flashes. The beagle's celebrity led it to a cruel and revolting fate that few dare to comment on. This moment exposed the darkest side of canine fame. Prepare to learn about the most controversial chapter in this breed's history, when it was almost forgotten, or, worse, used to its limit. Behind the beagle's friendly snout lies a story that revolts anyone with a minimum of empathy. A story that rarely appears in cute commercials or adorable TikTok videos. The beagle, once a star, ended up being transformed into a test subject. In laboratories, yes, you heard right. Its docility with humans, the same trait that made it a good family dog, also condemned it to one of the cruelest roles in modern canine history. Pharmaceutical and cosmetic industries identified the beagle as the perfect animal for scientific testing: small, easy to handle, docile, and quiet. And this is not a conspiracy theory, it's a documented fact that sparked protest around the world. What was supposed to be a symbol of joy became an icon of involuntary submission. Thousands of beagles were bred and kept in cages, spending their lives being tested with drugs, chemicals, and invasive procedures. Indignation is inevitable. How did the world accept turning such a popular breed into a guinea pig? And even outside the laboratories, the criticism of the beagle doesn't stop. Veterinarians warn that the modern beagle has been suffering from health problems caused by poorly planned crossbreeding. Hip malformation, epilepsy, and eye diseases are increasingly common, a direct result of mass reproduction without criteria. Just to meet the demand for real Snoopies, the frustration of guardians also fuels this bad reputation. There are many reports of people giving up on the breed a few months after adoption, due to the difficult-to-control behavior, the tendency to escape, and the incessant barking. And then comes the vicious cycle. The beagle ends up in a shelter, from where it rarely leaves, all because marketing sold a dream and delivered an earthquake. In the midst of all this, the question that screams out is, who is the real culprit? The dog that only followed its instinct, or the society that preferred appearance to responsibility? But hold on, not all is lost. As much as this story revolts, it also serves as a warning. And it leads us directly to the next point. What science has already discovered about the beagle, and what still leaves us perplexed? But before we continue, let me ask you something. Have you ever had or thought about getting a beagle? Tell me in the comments about your experience or frustration with the breed. And if you're enjoying this unfiltered dive into the origin of pets, leave a like and subscribe now, because at the end there's still a list that could change your view of this breed forever. Prepare to learn about the most controversial chapter in this breed's history, when it was almost forgotten, or, worse, used to its limit. Even after centuries of living with humans, the beagle remains a box of surprises for science. This is because behind that pleading look and floppy ears, there's a brain that still defies explanation. Animal behavior researchers have been trying to understand why the beagle is so stubborn, so obstinate, and at the same time, so affectionate. Part of the answer lies in its primitive instinct as a scent hound. The beagle has one of the most acute noses in the canine kingdom, with more than 120 million olfactory receptors. It literally sees the world through smell. But this superpower nose comes at a price. When the beagle catches a scent, its brain goes into hunter mode and practically ignores all commands. It's as if it's been abducted by an invisible trail, and not even treats can bring the little guy back, scientifically. This is called selective focus, and few dogs possess this to such an extreme level. Another curiosity that intrigues experts is its ability to socialize with humans and other dogs. Studies show that the beagle has a brain pattern that favors empathy and group living, something rare in hunting dogs. In other words, it hunts in packs but lives as a member of the family. A contradiction, perhaps, or a stroke of genius from nature, but the greatest mystery of all is still far from being deciphered. The reason behind the intense separation anxiety in beagles. When left alone, many of them panic, destroy objects, and howl for hours. Science suggests that this is linked to their evolutionary history, as they were selected to live in groups. Loneliness activates brain regions similar to those of physical pain. In other words, the beagle isn't being dramatic, it really suffers. And this completely changes how we should view its behavior. So, why do we continue to treat the beagle as a common dog if it carries such a unique brain and more? Are you, well-intentioned guardian, really respecting the limits of this sensitive dog? Now the moment of truth has arrived. The 10 human behaviors that can make any beagle furious, including things you might be doing right now without realizing it. If the video has made you reflect this far, leave a like, subscribe, and share with that friend who always thinks their beagle is rebellious, when, in fact, it's just being misunderstood. You thought all it took was premium kibble, a random toy. And that's it. The Beagle would love you unconditionally. But the truth is different. There are attitudes that you, the human guardian, have in your daily life that leave any Beagle on the verge of an emotional breakdown. Here are 10 reasons why your Beagle might be completely irritated with you, and you haven't even realized it. 1. You ignore walks. A Beagle trapped indoors is a time bomb. It needs to explore, sniff, run. If you think opening the backyard door solves it, congratulations, you're leaving your dog bored, and a bored Beagle becomes a destroyer of worlds. 2. You yell at it. It's not deaf, it's just stubborn. Yelling doesn't work. It only makes it ignore you even more. 3. You leave it alone for hours. Seriously. The Beagle hates this. It needs company. It needs a pack. When you leave and think a chew toy will do the trick, it feels abandoned. And then it will chew the table just to express its trauma. 4. You don't let it sniff. Stopping every 5 steps on a walk is normal for it. The world is an open book of smells. Pulling the leash every time it tries to sniff a lamppost is like tearing a book out of someone's hands in the middle of a chapter. 5. You only pet it when you want to. A Beagle is needy, very needy, and it knows when you're just faking affection. Don't be fooled. It perceives the disguised neglect. 6. You don't offer mental challenges. This dog was made to think. If you don't provide scent puzzles, interactive toys, or at least a new trick from time to time, it will create its own challenges, and spoiler alert, they usually involve destruction. 7. You don't respect its time. It doesn't always want to play. Sometimes it wants its own space, forcing affection when it's in its own world. Another point of accumulated anger. 8. You think it's an obedience dog. It's not. It's a working dog, following orders just to follow them, only if it makes sense to it. Otherwise, it will look at you and think, are you serious? 9. You change the routine out of the blue. A Beagle likes predictability. If you walk it at 8 a.m. today, 11 a.m. tomorrow, and then forget the day after, it feels lost. And a lost Beagle becomes a rebellious Beagle. 10. You forget it's an emotional being. Treating it as just a dog is a recipe for it to become the dog. It feels everything. Sadness, anxiety, anger. If you don't respect that, it notices. Now tell me, how many of these mistakes have you made? You can confess in the comments. The Beagle won't read it, but it will forgive you. Maybe. Hit the like button, subscribe if you're not already part of the pack, and share this video with anyone who thinks their Beagle is difficult. What's really difficult is being so intelligent and not being understood. And next, a question that will leave you with an itch behind your ear literally. Did you choose the Beagle? Or did it choose you? Deep down, the Beagle's anger isn't against you. It's against the frustrated expectation of having been understood. It didn't ask to be famous, cute, viral. It wanted it to be a dog, to sniff, run, scent, love, bark. But what did it get? A life to domesticate it for one born to explore. You look at it and see a needy, stubborn, restless little animal. But what if it looks at you and sees an anxious, controlling, impatient human? Maybe the truth is hard to swallow. The Beagle isn't angry with you for being you. It's angry because you forgot who it is. And when a being is deprived of its nature, it screams in every way possible. Tears pillows, howls on the porch, ignores you, challenges you. It's not rebellious. It's trying to survive emotionally inside a house that doesn't speak its language. But hold on. There's still time to listen, to adapt, to change. Small attitudes, because the Beagle doesn't want punishment. It wants partnership. And I ask you, is the problem the Beagle? Or are we the ones who are prepared for so much canine intelligence and sensitivity? Comment below if you identified with any of these situations. Your Beagle thanks you in silence. Maybe chewing the remote control, but it thanks you. And if you like this video, you know the drill. Subscribe, leave that like, activate the bell, and share with anyone who needs to finally understand what it's really like to live with a real Beagle. In the next video, we'll learn about the breed that was banned in several countries and the reason will leave you speechless.